just about these two teams in the final, but I'm going to hopefully get you to extrapolate how these two teams need to approach the game. We know all about the way the Spanish women play. They play like the men. They tiki taka till kingdom come. And the Germans though, kind of held them. To be honest, the Germans were really quite impressive. They packed out the midfield, or gave Spain, because of course tiki taka depends on dominating the midfield or passing the ball at those diagonals that you've talked so much about, which is where the game is made and lost, isn't it? Their tiki taka is dependent upon that midfield, at least if not being theirs, at least afforded them the space to dance around it. So the Germans just nullified that, didn't give them any space, and you saw the Spanish team passing backwards, sometimes all the way back to the goalkeeper. So he ran out of ideas, and then they started playing the long ball. With England, the problem has been, and I think this is a problem that everybody will acknowledge, that certainly last two games has been, and maybe three, that they've started a bit late off the blocks. They've gone down. Going down to Italy was bad enough. That was only 1-0. To Sweden, it was 2-0 down that first half, and Sweden could have got a couple more goals on top of that. They could, if they'd gone.
You're still hurt by this, aren't you? You're still hurt by this.
Look, it made the best team win, but it hurt me on the night. I won't lie, because I thought I've got to go for Sweden. I've got to go for Sweden because that's where I spent a lot of my time, and I have one foot in the Swedish camp always. But what hurt the most was Sweden were 2-0 up at halftime. 2-0 up. They were almost 3-0 up at the death just before the halftime whistle. They could have been 4-0 up. If you take the expanse of that first half. England didn't look like even coming out the blocks at the beginning of the second half. It takes them a long time, and then they magically bring on, after the Swedes held them down to 2-0 for a long time, they magically bring on the cavalry. Sorry, they managed to get an equaliser, I think, but or at least they were 1-0. England, it was 2-1 at one point. England did score a goal somewhere along the way. But the point I'm trying to make is, I think I got that right. Anyway, so the second half was dominated still by Sweden until they brought in the cavalry, which was, as I said, Michelle Adjeman and Chloe Kelly. And then they managed to get a result. So England need to start out off the blocks much earlier, because I don't think Spain's going to be as easy to bring on the cavalry to put some goals past them if they're 1-0 or 2-0 down at the final minute. And Spain need to find a way, because England would have seen what Germany did now, and Spain need to find a way of developing that tiki-taka, maybe to incorporate a little bit of the long ball as well. And by the way, their front one at one point, but front two, ultimately two lead strikers, both kind of centre forwards, came on at different times. They are very good at, you'll be surprised, Spain that don't do long balls, they are very good at first touch, bringing out that long ball to their feet. But what do they need to do? How do they win a tournament like this?
Well, remember that England have the advantage of the extra day's rest. That's nice, isn't it? That's nice to have. And I think there's another advantage which England have, which is that they start the game winning 0-0. Because the old Jack Charlton thing, you don't have to win to win. And so usually in a knockout game, the onus is on one side to come out and break the deadlock. And if it's 0-0 after half time, that's brilliant for England. It's fantastic, because they've avoided the slow start that you've talked about in the previous games, and we know that they can finish hard, and we know that they've had an extra day's rest. So the way that you can set up, I think, to defend without doing it passively. I think there's a problem if you set up to defend and you're too passive, especially against a team like Spain, because if you let them set into a rhythm, they will find ways to pass holes through you. If you're snapping into it and you're keeping them at a distance from your own goal, and you're worrying them, because imagine if it's 0-0 after half an hour, and then 0-0 after an hour, these thoughts will be going around the heads of the Spanish players. They've had an extra day's rest. Look who they've got on the bench. So I think it's a game that England start. They win the game 0-0 right from the start. It's almost like they're defending an aggregate lead. You know,
it's not going to stay 0-0. We thought against Germany that it would end up 0-0, and you could see the Spanish coach looking apoplectic because she couldn't understand it. You know, this is a team that needs to score goals. That's the way the whole team is set up. You've got to score, not to sit back and try and win 0-0 and then go to a penalty shootout afterwards. I don't think there's any risk of it ending 0-0 at some point. And the question in England is whether Adjeman and Kelly will start. And there's a lot of